Good morning. It's Friday, March 11th, and this is our daily weather briefing for this Friday. And we're going to look at the weather coming up today and this weekend and into next week, and a couple of interesting weather situations developing that we'll highlight a little bit while we check out the weather here. But first of all, let's get a look at the current weather conditions across the United States at 16Z. And well, we've got our old low pressure system that's now beginning to eject out of New Mexico or out of Mexico into the southern, south central portion of the United States. And finally, we're going to probably get some of this heavy rain out of here and get some relief for these people down here with the massive flooding that's going on there. We have a frontal boundary that extends from a cold front that went through the northeast and brought in some cooler weather this today. That extends all the way down into the southeastern portion of the United States to a surface low. It's around the Del Rio area. Strong area of showers and thunderstorms that are going to be now advancing into Alabama, right along the Mississippi-Alabama border, with a good batch of showers and thunderstorms extending all the way back into southwestern portions of Texas. And then along the west coast, we have a pretty potent little storm system that's coming into the west coast, moving down the California coast here. We'll look at that on satellite. It's kind of interesting to see how the models are handling that and how the satellite shows that storm system. And then a dry system that's moving through the portions of the Intermountain West and so forth. Not a lot of cold air at this time. Temperatures were cooler yesterday. They've warmed up a little bit more in the northern portion of the United States with temperatures now in the 50s and lower 40s. And temperatures are pretty mild across most of the country at this point in time. Real cooler temperatures in the northwest, and we'll begin to see a trend as cooler temperature will begin to increase there and then towards the central portion of the United States later on in next week. Current watch warning map. Again, we highlight the southern tier of the United States here. We have flash flood warnings and watches and advisories still in effect, most of them right now over Mississippi. These will be expanding east as the storm system begins to progress towards the east and so forth. We may see some more begin to show up back here in central Texas as the upper level low begins to push out and push up into this area, and a little bit of dynamic gets involved with more of this storm system and this precipitation. There is a hydrological advisory up here between Minnesota and North Dakota. Some red flag advisories for very dry conditions across the central plains here in Nebraska and out here in most of Mexico. Most of this is a fire watch that's currently in effect for dry conditions, and windy conditions are going to be coming up with this upper level system that's coming out of the southwest here. And along the west coast, we have winter storm watches and warnings and some coastal flood advisories, and also some flash flood warnings and watches that are in effect for this storm system that's moving down the coast here. Looking at the current eastern visible satellite picture, we have obviously again we have the strong inflow of moisture off the Gulf of Mexico into the Mississippi Valley here. A lot of precipitation coming along here. You're beginning to see some breaking up of this, and we'll look at the low-level wind flow pattern here, and we'll begin to see that this is there's a reason behind all this. However, we may move more into more of a severe weather risk as this upper level low begins to eject. And this is a pretty decent upper level low. It's not super powerful on the charts, but it's potent, and we'll see precipitation increase across Texas and into Oklahoma and in these areas again before it finally moves out over the weekend. Now, looking at the western portion of the United States, we have a pretty strong storm system that's moving into the west coast here. This is a potent system, a lot of cold air behind it. You can see all the cold air with these puffy tops to these clouds here. Another storm system right on the back end of this one. I think the models again are underdoing the moisture associated with this storm. This is a pretty strong band of influx of moisture here. Supposedly the models say as this moves towards the southeast, this is going to become pinched off. We'll see as time goes on how that takes place, but I think we're going to have a little bit more moisture out here in the southwest than what the models are showing at this time. But we'll keep an eye on it. But it's definitely a potent system, and some good chance of some thunderstorms with this storm system as this funnel band moves in, and obviously as the cold air aloft begins to move in. Looking at the current radar right now at 16Z, again, we see that big slug of moisture over the south central portion of the United States and over the southeast and Mississippi Valley. Again, a pretty good band of showers and thunderstorms moving into southwestern portions of Alabama at this point in time. There'll be some flooding there, some flash flood watches and warnings in effect there. And then again, that frontal boundary that's moving into the San Francisco area, Bakersfield area, good chance for showers and thunderstorms. That'll be moving into Los Angeles and San Diego later. We'll see if this band holds together when it gets to San Diego. There's a lot of debate up for that right now. Looking at the severe weather analysis for today, looking at yesterday, again, there wasn't a lot of severe weather reports, mostly wind damage, and that's kind of what we expected. It was kind of a down day, a lot of precipitation, a lot more saturated air associated with the thunderstorms. And looking at the severe weather outlook for today, there really isn't any. Mostly general thunderstorms are what they are forecasting. However, I do feel there might be a marginal risk begin to pop up around here, the south central portion of and southeast portion of Texas as this upper level low comes out. We've got some clearing skies, cooler temperatures aloft. We might get some marginal severe weather here. I think that'll be upgraded later on today. But again, over in these areas, I think the upper level winds or the low level jets dying. So it's going to be mostly continued the flooding aspect, but not so much the severe weather aspect as time goes on. And then we've got some general thunderstorms out here in the west and in the intermountain regions of the northwest. Now here's the concern is day 3, and we were talking about this back on Wednesday, that upper level low that's going to be ejecting out of the southwest, because there is so much moisture in the surface here, we think there's a better chance for severe weather. Well, sure enough, day 3 SPC has put out a slight risk for portions of southern, central and southern Arkansas and northern portions of Louisiana. I think this is smart. We're going to look at it a little bit later at the conditions there to see what could be coming up with this. This might be enhanced a little bit, so we'll monitor. We'll look at that when we get into the 5-day outlook here. We're not going to spend a lot of time on severe weather since it's really not a big potential today. We are going to look at the upper level winds and the low level winds at the 925 millibar. The low level jet has begun to slowly decrease a little bit. It's still pretty strong out of the Gulf, so there's still an inflow coming into these areas, but it's not quite as strong. There'll still be training of storms, but it's just not going to, the inflow is not as strong as it was, so I think the levels of precipitation are going to be gradually decreasing as time goes on. Looking at the 850 millibar level, this level has really decreased quite a bit. We still have some small pockets of 30 to 40 knot winds and maybe up to 45 knot winds, but again, this area is pretty small. This little area here just off the coast around Houston, I think, is a concern, and that's why I think we'll have a little bit of a marginal risk increase here of severe weather down the road, because there is clearer skies, cooler air aloft, and there is a small little jet max, low-level jet max that might increase some rotation, low-level rotation. Do we get tornadoes? I don't think so. I think it's going to be mostly possibly hail and some strong gusty winds. A lot of strong winds associated with an onshore flow off the California coast with this upper-level low coming in. This is a potent little storm, and I think that's the reason why we're seeing that. Looking at the 700 millibar levels, again, this is beginning to wane down a little bit, or wind down a little bit, I guess I should say. Again, we're not going to see as much trailing of storms as we've had, but we'll continue to have it, and heavy rains will be a potential there, but I think the level and intensity level is going to be decreasing. Very strong winds at the 700 millibar levels with this storm system that's coming into the west coast here, hence the coastal flood advisories and high wind watches that are in effect out here, also high wind warnings too. Looking at the 500 millibar levels, again, the upper level low out here, good strong flow, unidirectional, so again, I don't think we're going to have a lot of major severe weather at all, but might be a little bit closer again as the winds are a little bit more divergent here associated with the upper level low. This upper level low out west, a strong jet coming around the southern portion of it and around the western portion, so it's still got some digging that's going to be taking place. Charts are indicating that it's going to be not quite as deep as it was yesterday. I debate that a little bit. I still think it's going to be quite deep. The jet's still pretty strong here on the west side, so it's got quite a little bit more digging, and it's quite a diffluent flow aloft. So I think we may even see a marginal increase of severe weather out here in California along the coast here today. And then finally, looking at 300 millibar levels, again, here's this diffluence here in the atmosphere. Again, it's more closer to where this little low-level jet is. I think we could again get some severe weather out here along the Houston coast here around Houston, but most of the other areas are kind of again, we'll have to see. We'll have to monitor the conditions. If they get some sunshine today, they could definitely get a little bit higher risk of severe weather, but we'll monitor that. And again, the west coast here, strong jet max coming on the backside of this low. Expected to dig a little bit further south, but it will definitely be kicking out this storm. Looking at aviation weather at this time, we have several areas of thunderstorms that are being highlighted out here on, like we saw on radar, just off the coast here of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and along the Mississippi and Alabama state line here for thunderstorms between 43 and 45,000 feet. And then there's a band of thunderstorms out here in Texas up to 32,000 feet. No convective signals for the eastern portion of the United States, but out west, right along the coast there, associated with that upper level low in California, potential for convection happening later today. Turbulence between 24 and 39,000 feet with the upper level jet here. But that's about it. We'll probably get some turbulence with some thunderstorms in these different areas towards the southwest and also in the central plains. And then no icing really a concern for this day. So now we're going to get into the 5-day outlook, and this is going to be kind of an extended because we only have highlight a couple of days here. So looking at today, again, we see on the upper level charts, the upper level low is going to be spinning up and moving into Texas now. We'll have a better handle of this as it's now into the upper level fields of the United States. Strong upper level storm system coming down the west coast here with a lot of energy coming into the west and southwest here. Looking at the surface here, 1,000 millibar low coming in, so definitely a lot of potential for storms here along the coast. Some pretty strong winds, probably some hail, maybe a few spin up tornadoes could be possible, or some water spouts, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. And again, as we see with the upper level low here, the main band of moisture, they're showing it mostly over Mississippi and Louisiana. I think this can be shifted a little bit more to the east, and I think we'll see a band of precipitation begin to form around this upper level low too, where there's some sunshine and some cooler air aloft, and that little jet max coming off the coast there, so at 925 millibars. So I think we'll have a little bit more wraparound. This storm will be moving up into Oklahoma and Arkansas today, producing some heavy rains there, but nothing to the level that we've seen before. Looking at Saturday, the strong trough that was off the west coast is now ejected inland with a negative tilt, pretty potent, and I think there's still going to be some moisture here that's going to be wrung out across northern Arizona, portions of Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico, even though the charts over here look like they're showing nothing on the surface. I disagree with this completely. I think there's going to be something there. Is it going to be a lot? No, I don't think it's going to be a lot, but I still think there's going to be more than what's being shown here. Obviously on the west coast, more energy coming in. We see that with snow, intermountain snows, and precipitation. The upper level lows coming out of Texas, it's a negative tilt. It is decreasing in intensity, but I think we have to be on the alert that there might be some strong thunderstorms throughout the day on Saturday between Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Even though the charts are not showing a lot of precipitation, I think there will be some isolated to strong thunderstorms because the system is changing and morphing into a different system. Now Saturday's a little bit different, or Sunday's a little bit different picture. We're going to focus on a few more things here on Sunday. At 18Z we have a excuse me. Yeah, 18Z, this is the correct one here. This trough's a little bit deeper here, and it's showing, actually we got to go back one. We have an extra, this is the correct maps here. We have an extra map in there which is not supposed to be in there. This trough is around the southern port, around the Red River Valley. It's pretty potent. There's a lot of moisture here that's going to be in the atmosphere because of the saturated ground here. So I think the potential for severe weather is going to be a lot stronger here than was been indicated in the past. And obviously SPC's picked up on that and issued a slight risk for this area here. Surface map shows that, although it's not really showing a strong surface low. It's mostly in the upper levels. I think there will be a surface low that will be increasing as time goes on. Let's go to the surface dew points. Surface dew points are going to be pretty good here. I think they're going to be a little higher than this. They're showing dew points in the low to mid 60s. I think they'll be higher than that. There's just so much moisture that's sitting in the ground there. It's not going to take much to lift that up. And then they're showing the Cape values are kind of weak, maybe hitting about 1,500 joules per kilogram. I don't know. We'll see. I think there may be some sunshine. I think that'll be a little higher. The charts tend to go a little, especially the GFS tends to be a little lower than what it actually is on the day. So we'll have to monitor that condition when we get there. But I think there's a good chance that we'll see some decent severe weather that day. Hail, definitely a possibility. Strong gusty winds. I would not be surprised if there aren't a few tornadoes that day. How big they are, I don't know at this point in time, and we will have to wait until the day actually comes to look at that and see what the parameters show. Looking at Monday, that upper level trough moves into the southeast, and I still think there'll be some thunderstorms along the coast there. There'll be some moisture there, definitely for sure. It's weakening to some extent, so I don't think it's going to be quite as a big outbreak or anything. And neither one of these events, I think, are going to be huge outbreaks. But we have to watch them because we are in that season, and anything can happen. We had a couple of weeks ago in Alabama. A day that there was no watches or warnings, and we had a pretty decent sized tornado that went through central portions of Alabama and around Birmingham, and that was a surprise. So any of these situations we have to watch throughout the year, especially during this time of the year. A lot of energy coming into the West Coast, and that's going to be very important as we look into Tuesday. Some decent snows out here in the Intermountain West and along the coast here as our storm system along the East Coast begins to weaken and move out. Now we're going to focus in on Tuesday. And Tuesday, I think, has the potential of being a bigger event than what the charts are really indicating here. A lot of it depends upon the moisture return. We're going to look at some of that. Definitely, I think, a negative tilted trough moving in here into the central portion of the United States. A lot of energy moving through Kansas and Missouri here into Illinois. If we look at the surface chart, we have a 988 millibar surface low sitting out here by the Quad Cities here. With a lot of wind going on here. It's not showing much snow, but there's a lot of wind at the surface, so it's going to be quite a windy day and a lot of energy. Now let's look at the surface conditions. Now this is the dew points currently being represented by the GFS at this time on Tuesday at 18Z. They're showing that most of the moisture is going to be off the coast here and maybe a tongue of 60-degree dew points up to around Little Rock and Memphis. I think it's going to be a little higher than that. Again, there's a lot of moisture in this air, a lot of moisture in this ground, so I don't think it'll take much to pick that up and produce that. Either way, dew points in the mid-50s to 60s, still in the early part of the spring with a very dynamic system coming in. We need to watch this. I think the models are underplaying this potential event. I don't know what kind of event it's going to be, but I think it needs to be watched. Looking at the Cape values here, Cape values, this is the limiting factor. There's not a lot of Cape right now at this point in time. Most of it's back here towards the southern portion of the front, but it is a very potent storm, and it's something we've got to look at and keep an eye on and see how the models begin to grab onto this. Looking at the wind flow aloft, looking at 925 millibars, which I like to look at, especially when it comes to tornado season. It's definitely out of the south. It depends on how this high pressure ridge down here cuts off the Gulf. Does it cut off the inflow off the Gulf of Mexico? Here it doesn't look like it to me. It's a pretty decent low-level jet, ranging from anywhere between 35 and 40 knots. This might increase as we go further along. We'll have to watch it, but it's definitely got the low-level inflow to it for a decent amount there at that level. Looking at the 500 millibar, again, we have a very strong, potent jet coming into this dynamic system. Anywhere between 85 to 90, almost 100 knot wind flow at 500 millibars. A good defluence aloft over Missouri and Illinois. So I think, even though the limited factor might be moisture and it might be the instability, As far as shear values go, I don't think there's going to be any loss of shear. I think there's going to be an increased amount of shear. So it's something I think we have to watch for Tuesday. That may be the big ticket day, our first really big severe weather ticket day for the Midwest and portions of the Arclatech area there. We'll have to really watch that, but we'll keep an eye on it as it gets closer. Finally, looking at Wednesday, a lot of energy moving into the northeast. Again, we're going to have to watch for severe weather. It doesn't take, dew points in the 60s to create severe weather in the northeast. We'll have to see what the temperature is at that time. This is a very potent system now that's sitting over upper Michigan with a pressure of 973 millibars. That's very strong. Almost blizzard conditions in Wisconsin and Minnesota. They're going to be quite shocked by this weather that's coming in because they've been quite warm prior to that time. So it's going to be quite of a wake-up call reminding people. And really, this is going to be kind of a change in the pattern here. I think we're going to see some more cooler injections of air coming into the central portion of the United States. That's going to be staying a little bit longer and more heat building out west, as I think we'll see, as we can obviously see here, high-pressure ridges now moving back into the western portion of the United States. But I do think the weather's going to become more transient over time as we get shorter wavelengths, as we move in towards the middle part of spring or the heart of spring, and we'll begin to see more storm systems coming through. So kind of summing up this week coming up, I think the flooding should begin to subside over the weekend. There'll still be flooding, granted. Any thunderstorms, even if they drop a quarter inch or half an inch or even an inch of rain, it's going to cause a lot of problems with already a bad situation that's in the Mississippi Valley. Severe weather potential, I think, is going to be there Sunday, and I think definitely will be there Tuesday. We just don't know the extent of it yet. And then I think there'll be a shift in the pattern to more warmer temperatures in the west and cooler in the east this next following week. So thank you for watching. We're not going to be doing a weather briefing on Saturday or Sunday, but we'll be back on Monday to give you a weather briefing, and we'll keep you posted throughout the weekend for the weather conditions. Thank you, and have a great weekend.